the cloud. All right. So in your background, you played club lacrosse. So what made you want to do that in your college career?
Yeah, so I wasn't one of the guys who like had to choose to play club.
Yeah.
If I wanted to play lacrosse in college, that was my option, right? And really, for me, my personal background was more so I wanted to go to the University of Florida. First and foremost, lacrosse initially really wasn't on my radar. Like I knew about it, but more so when I got there, I met some guys in the class ahead of me who just happened to play on the lacrosse team, and I had played, all my life. I grew up in Virginia, but came down to Florida, so I was sort of like a fish out of water. And so they convinced me to come out because I had been a good player in my youth, and then my high school career was just sort of it's kind of a late bloomer, and I played at a school in DC called Gonzaga that has since gone on to become somewhat of a national power. And so I was a small to medium fish in a really big pond in that part of the country. And so I kind of figured, lacrosse ended after high school for me because I never made the varsity team at Gonzaga. And then made the decision to just give it a shot at UF, and I had kind of grown a little bit, hit a growth spurt, and turned out to be an awesome decision because I went on to play all 4 years and had a great time. And it was obviously a super impactful part of my college experience because now here I am going on year 6 of being the coach.
So how did you end up becoming the head coach?
So I graduated in 2015 was my last year playing, and my coach, Ryan Winters, had been the coach for almost a decade. I think it was his 9th season. He was also an alumnus, and he retired from coaching at UF the same season that I graduated. So we sort of had our last ride together. He moved back to Philadelphia. He's actually now with Temple back in the MCLA. And I moved out of Gainesville, started working and was coaching as an assistant at a high school, Merritt Island High School over in Merritt Island, Florida. And I really enjoyed coaching, and I knew that I was going to continue doing it after that first year, just, wherever I was. But fortunately, there was a kind of a holdover coaching staff in the year between 2015 when I played my last season and 2017 when I coached the first time. And so after that gap year, there was sort of a search for something a little bit more permanent, and one thing kind of led to another, and my name got thrown in the ring. And the incoming executive board, which was guys that I had played with, obviously had a vision for trying to sort of take the program to the next level, and that sort of aligned with what I would want to do if they brought me back. And so 2 guys, Hank Champagne and Aaron Silcott, offered me the job, and I've been here ever since.
What was the transition like from being teammates with some of these guys to end up being the coach in charge of them?
It was interesting. My first couple years, really up until the last 2 years, like maybe starting in 2020. So both sort of COVID interrupted seasons, the 2020 season that got cut short and the 21 season that sort of started late and was only really sort of half a season. Before that, my dynamic with the players was a little bit more like big brother, little brother than it was sort of, maybe more of an authority figure the way that it is now, because I'm now, I've been out of college longer than I was in. So to a freshman or a sophomore now, I'm fairly far apart in age, and I've kind of moved on to the next station in life in terms of, marriage and career outside of lacrosse and stuff like that. So I think now I'm in a place where my relationship with a lot of the younger guys is more coach player. But for those first couple of years, especially the first 2 years, it might have been, I'm trying to do the math. There might have been guys 3 years in who I had still played with. But it was definitely more of a peer-to-peer relationship than a coach to player. So it worked. We had a lot of success those first couple of years. But, I think that's kind of part of coaching, is not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. You kind of have to read the room, and I knew that I couldn't come in and, as a 23-year-old, sort of try to be really like commanding with a group of 21 and 22-year-olds. I had to sort of relate to them on a level that worked for that dynamic. And over time, that dynamic has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of kind of like the overall culture of the team, did you kind of try and copy what you had as a player, or kind of bring in a new culture to the team?
There were aspects of it, obviously, that I wanted to replicate. Obviously, there was a lot of good about my playing experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept doing it probably. But looking back, I think Florida had fallen behind the rest of the, call it maybe like the top 25% of the MCLA a little bit. Florida in the 2000s and sort of the early 2010s had a lot of success, like before my time as a player, winning conference championships, making it to the national tournament regularly. So there were sort of these glory years of Florida lacrosse that I had only heard about as a part of history. And like I said, looking back, my assessment is that the rest of the league and the teams that sort of continued to succeed, and new teams that arrived on the scene and sort of joined that upper echelon, they had kind of ramped it up a little bit. It was almost sort of like, it's a little bit of an arms race in the MCLA every year. Things get a little bit more serious, a little bit more organized, a little bit more legit. And I think we had slipped for a couple of years and not keeping up. So part of the initial vision coming in was we had to do what was necessary to start gaining ground. A lot of that had to do with, how much work we were willing to put in. We needed to increase our practice, frequency, and make things a little bit more intense and sort of elevate the commitment level. And that's held true over my, going on 6 years thus far. Is you constantly have to be evaluating, are we doing enough to achieve what we say our goals are, right? I'm sure every team in the MCLA says they want to win a national championship, but there's probably like 8 who are actually doing the work. Because if 2 teams are outworking everybody else by that much and nobody else matches them, then the chances of any of those other teams competing for a national championship are pretty low. So we're going through another, sort of change, a period of change this offseason, of finding new ways to practice, finding new ways to elevate the commitment level. Sometimes it's about working harder. Sometimes it's about just working smarter, as they say, finding more efficient ways to practice, or ways to make practice more effective. But that's been the big change, is just sort of embracing a never-ending evolution, right? We try not to pigeonhole ourselves into, well, it's non-varsity, so that means we only do this. We don't do that. We try to look at it as, what do we say our goals are, right? There might be clubs out there whose goals are, we just want to keep playing lacrosse and have some fun, and that's fine, and they can tailor their experience to align with that. But for us, we want to win championships, and we've inched our way closer to that over the past couple of years, but we still have a long way to go. So we're constantly self-evaluating to see what else do we need to do to get closer to making that a reality.
Kind of goes along with that too, but what's the practice schedule and the off-season schedule look like at your program?
Yeah, so as of now, and we're excited to hopefully be sort of on our way back to normal schedules in the post-COVID era. But we begin fall ball in late August, early September, basically when the fall semester starts. And we'll have, and I think one of your questions is also about the process to sort of join the team. So this will sort of cover that too.
Yeah.
There's an open skill evaluation period, an open evaluation period, and it's totally open, right? So any eligible UF student is able to come to that. The way it usually works out is on average, we might have 70 to 80 participants in that process. That's been pretty steady the past couple of years. And then just sort of due to, the practical limitations of traveling a lacrosse team, we'll usually cap it around 50. So we'll invite between 40 and 50 guys who have earned it. If 50 earn it, we'll invite 50. If only 40 earn it, we'll invite 40. But we'll invite guys to be a part of the team for the year. So once you earn your spot in the fall, you're on that team for that year. And that all is done usually by mid-September. The roster is set for that year's campaign. And then we'll go something like 3 practices a week in the fall, 2 to 3 practices a week. On average, like a 2-hour practice at night after your classes are done. And then there will be other activities that you're expected to participate in. Some are done on your own schedule, like lifting and conditioning and wall ball, stuff like that. And then there will be things that are team activities that we do together, but that aren't, a practice. It could be going to the football stadium. We're lucky at UF that our football stadium is open to the public during the week to go use as sort of like an outdoor gym. And so we'll go work out in the swamp or something like that. So something we just implemented and that we're going to sort of continue to refine is using wearable tech. So Fitbits, Apple Watches, but that's the way that we can create an accountability structure for lifting, for conditioning, for wall ball. We have groups on, the various fitness apps where guys will log the individual work that they're doing, and they can do it around their schedule, but they have an expectation during the week of what they're supposed to be doing. Guys are actually doing that right now during the summer. And then they'll log it and they'll get credit for it. And that's kind of how we track it. So that's kind of what a week looks like. And then fall ball will run until mid-November. We'll play a couple scrimmages and then we'll take a break from mid-November through the new year. And again, there'll be things you need to be doing on your own, but you can be doing them wherever you are, at home or on vacation or whatever. And then come January, as we build up to the start of regular season play, we'll practice more like 4 to 5 nights a week. Kind of treat those first couple weeks of January as like training camp. And then once games start, that probably, you probably lose a practice per week at least because you're sort of substituting in games. So 3 to 4 practices a week as we prepare for the next weekend's games. And then obviously, as you guys know, play regular season games through like that second, third national tournament mode.
Hey, Coach, you cut out for that last part there. Do you think you can repeat that?
Sure. Yeah. Do you know like right whereabout I cut out?
Yeah, right. Literally right when you said, as you guys know, then you cut out. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was saying, as you guys know, we, start playing games. Regular season play starts, early February, especially down here where it's a little bit warmer. And then we're playing regular season games up to like the 2nd and 3rd week of April. And then postseason play after that. So obviously SCLC tournament in late April. And then the goal is always national tournament in that 2nd week thereabout of May. So in terms of like an overall big picture expected commitment, it's, on campus for the fall semester, September through mid-November. and then take a little break from practice mid-November through the new year. And then, we're in season mode, both regular season and postseason, from early January through the middle of May. And then summer, everybody will go off and do their respective thing for the summer. But like I said, we'll have some accountability measures in place remotely, so guys aren't, getting out of shape or letting their sticks collect dust or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned you guys get to use the football stadium for some workouts. Do you ever get to use that stadium or any of the other NCAA team facilities for your games or practices?
No, definitely not. Yeah, we're fortunate that we've always had great club facilities that are devoted to club athletics, and they actually are being renovated now. We had never had a turf field. There were actually no turf fields that I know of, like in Gainesville and probably in our county. But as of this past spring, we have a new turf facility, McGuire Field. It's beautiful. So we share that with a couple other clubs. And then our old game field, which was natural grass, is also being updated to be a brand new turf facility. So we'll have at least 2 turf facilities that we'll have access to. And our rec department, the club sports division of our rec department, is taking care of us really well in terms of the facilities are tailored to the various different sports, which is great. So we've got high fences behind the goal, so we're not sailing balls. They're putting in shot clocks for us. So we have awesome facilities. We don't use, as of now, any of the NCAA facilities. They're sort of separate and apart from the club facilities. And then, like, weight room wise, we're like most MCLA programs. I know there are some exceptions who have sort of devoted facilities. We don't have devoted facilities. We're a little bit more sort of old school in that guys got to go to the rec center on their own or their gym of choice. A lot of guys, some of the more meathead guys on the team are members of like off-campus gyms because it suits their preferences better. So we don't care where you get your work in. That's kind of your thing to solve. We just want you working.
Yeah, that's, as we've been running our Twitter account too, that's something we've started to see more, is some of these club teams really have their own locker rooms and weight rooms and stuff like that. And I'm personally jealous of it. It seems like a really cool thing to have, but it's also the real club experience seems to be done.
I see it back and forth. And I always crack up because, the haters come out of the woodwork for some of the teams with the nicer facilities, but in a heartbeat, if any one of them were offered the same level of facilities, they would take it. So I always get a good laugh out of that. We would love to have a locker room. We'd love to have a weight room. But we're also very fortunate to have the facilities that we do have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I saw Florida added a women's varsity lacrosse team kind of recently. Did that kind of have any effect on you guys, or do you think it will in the future?
It has to have been a while now, right? That was like back 2011, 2012 maybe. So yeah, they've been around and they've been pretty well established, and they made a Final Four in their first couple years. In terms of has it affected us, not really. I mean, other than we're definitely friendly with that team and we cheer them on and they cheer us on. As we're sort of the only game in town when it comes to a men's lacrosse team and sort of a counterpart to them in the same school colors. But it hasn't affected us in any way that I'm aware of. The men's club lacrosse team has been around in one way or another since, at least how I've been told, 1971. The history that far back is sort of the stuff of myth more than it is fact. But no, we've kept trucking along. I think what probably has more so affected us is that other schools around the country seem to all be investing in their club sports offering simultaneously in terms of facilities upgrades and stuff like that. So we're fortunate that UF, as a preeminent public institution, doesn't want to fall behind in that regard. So we're sort of reaping the benefits of that, but no effect on us other than that, we have a really awesome Division I women's team that we get to go watch, which is a ton of fun.
You mentioned the history of your program. Do you guys have a strong relationship with the alumni from your program, and do you have any events that you do with them?
We have like some really great alums who are super engaged, and we're really appreciative of that. We don't have as organized of an alumni network as I would like. That's something that's always sort of on the list of things, project to work on if we ever get the bandwidth. We do have, and especially in the more recent years. So I also think that as time goes on, if we continue to sort of elevate our status, both within the MCLA and sort of on campus, the more recent classes and the experience that they've had will start to formulate a stronger alumni base. But we definitely have at least a couple dozen really supportive alums who contribute financially every year and who come out to games when we're in their area. We've had alums, out in California and Atlanta and stuff like that come out to games. So they're definitely out there. We probably need to do a better job of organizing them as a program. And then we used to have an alumni game in the fall every year because obviously UF alums love to come back during football season. For a few different reasons, we've tried to move away from that, but we haven't gotten a chance to run the new event because the first time we were going to run it was 2020. So we missed out on it for the past 2 years. Mm-hmm. But when we're able, what we plan to do is have an alumni weekend in the spring that's centered around one of our games. And so rather than have the alumni come back and play an alumni game, which might be something we return to in the near future, we needed a little break from it. But really what we want is for alums to come back and come to a Gator game, a Gator lacrosse game, and, be supporters in that way, and then have an event, sometime after the game where we kind of get to socialize and mingle.
Mm-hmm. And the games that you guys have on campus, is it typically a lot of students and family coming to those too?
Yeah, we draw pretty good crowds. It's certainly better for, certain matchups. Mm-hmm. I'd say, if it's on a, sort of an average night, it is a lot of family, parents, and then obviously friends of guys on campus, right? In terms of a more like broad draw of like the general public, both students and just maybe people in Gainesville who live here. When we play Florida State, there's obviously a big crowd. When we play Central Florida, there's a big crowd because those are games that, have a lot of roots in the lacrosse scene throughout the state more broadly. When you talk about all the in-state guys who, either were teammates on the same high school team or were rivals in high school. And when you get into Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, South Florida, those lacrosse communities are fairly tight knit. So any of those sort of in-state games definitely draw a big crowd.
Mm-hmm. In the Florida lacrosse community too, are either you personally or the team involved in any high school or youth or any other types of lacrosse programs helping grow the sport?
So on most years, we have a couple guys who are on staff as volunteer assistants at one high school or another. It's not something that we try to make happen. It just sort of happens organically. Me personally, I'm involved in the sport more so in terms of outside of UF as a player. I still play men's league. I play for a team in Jacksonville called the Armadillos. So that's kept me connected to the sort of broader Florida lacrosse community. We've done things here and there like clinics and things like that, but what I've kind of realized is, that's not really our role. We're here to kind of focus on the Gators, right? Like it's difficult enough, especially nowadays with how much parity there is in the MCLA and how many teams are pushing themselves really hard. We try to devote all of our time and energy to making Gator lacrosse as good as it can be, knowing that there are other organizations throughout the state that are focused on, fostering the growth of the game. And guys, definitely when they're home for the summer and things like that, I know just secondhand that guys are involved in, men's leagues back home, and they're helping coach youth ball and stuff like that. So there's definitely sort of roots of Gator lacrosse all over both the state and the country. Really, we have a lot of out-of-state guys. We're probably like 30% out of state on our roster. So guys who love the game go home and stay involved in one way or another, but it's not something that we actively try to make happen. It just sort of happens naturally.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have a few guys on our team from Florida coming every year, so the roots are definitely there for the youth and high school levels. So we've talked to other coaches,
for sure,
and not as popular, and there's more of a need for people in the lacrosse community to do more, but I could definitely see that not as necessary down in Florida.
Yeah, we're fortunate that, a lot of other people have done a lot of hard work over like the last 20 years to establish youth lacrosse and establish high school lacrosse. So, we're able to focus on us a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you were kind of talking with a high schooler who was deciding between playing at Florida or maybe another MCLA school or playing D2 or D3, what would you kind of say to them to help them with that decision?
Yeah, well, I like the way that you phrased the question in terms of help them with the decision. That's definitely more the angle that I take. I don't ever try to sell anybody. So, people ask, like, do you recruit? And I guess it depends on how you define recruiting. I have conversations with high schoolers all the time. And I meet with them in person and I show them the field and all that kind of stuff. But, I'm not offering them anything aside from an experience. I don't have a scholarship to offer them. I don't have admissions assistance to offer them. So what I do and what I view my role as is I try to give them the information they need to make a decision, right? So tell them what experience they can expect generally as a student at UF, and then what they can expect as a lacrosse player at UF, with the goal being to help guys decide, is UF where I want to go to college? And with UF lacrosse being a important ask guys is, when you picture college, what do you imagine? And then on the lacrosse side, I just give them the facts. And I know a little bit about the NCAA, but again, as somebody who came up in the MCLA and is still in the MCLA, I don't know a ton. So I sort of trust them to do their due diligence about what is an NCAA, Division III experience going to offer them, what is a D2 experience going to offer them, or even a Division I experience. And then I'll tell them what our particular MCLA experience can offer them. And then, I leave it to them to decide what they want their lacrosse experience in college to be. And, same goes for the school broadly. If what he pictures in his head when he pictures college as a small liberal arts school, that's fantastic, but it's not Florida, right? So I wouldn't try to sell that kid to come to Florida. I would say, well, if that's what you picture, this is what you're going to get at UF. And, those are two very different things. So, if you don't want to be a Gator, that's totally okay.
Mm-hmm. And you've kind of touched on this a little bit already, but what goals do you have for your team this season?
We want to win a national championship and a conference championship. So, we compete for 2 championships. We're eligible for 2 championships. We want to win them both. It's been a while since we won an SELC championship. It's been over 10 years, and we've never won a national championship. So national championship is certainly probably you would consider it a lofty goal for us at this, present time. And even a conference championship may be a little bit lofty when you look at the competition in our conference. But we're serious about it. And I think we get a little bit closer every day and every year. There's obviously always sub goals within that, right? So we shoot for those big targets, but we also have a lot of things we want to do successfully. And at the end of the day, I'm going to list off all these goals, and really it's just going to sound like I'm saying we want to win every game, right? Because that's really important. That's really what it boils down to. But if I take a step back and 10,000 foot view, sort of look at different aspects of the experience, one goal I have for us in 2022 is I team both on and off the field than I feel like we were in 2021. 2020, we were doing really well and we had hit our stride towards the end of that season, got some big wins. And now, we're going to get a chance to see who we are coming out the other side of it. So I really want us we had awesome sort of chemistry and buy-in and sort of a really tight-knit brotherhood at the end of that 2020 season. I don't think we ever quite got back to it in 2021. I think we were trying really hard, but the circumstances were difficult. So I want us to sort of get back to that and then some in 2022. So that's definitely a goal of mine. And that's something that I'm channeling energy into in terms of making sure that I'm, planning for how, whatever I can do as a coach to facilitate that. I want to be intentional about doing that. Another goal we have, maybe again, from more of a building blocks perspective is I want to spend more time developing, our players as individual players first, especially early in the year, before we dive too deeply into developing our identity more from a team level, from a 6-on-6 level, a 10-on-10 level. So I'm kind of excited about that as we write out our sort of big picture plan to, taking all these guys in from different walks of life, different lacrosse backgrounds, different parts of the country, and molding them into, Gator lacrosse players first, and focusing on the skills and the things that we want to emphasize as building blocks for our success further down the road in terms of, team play. And then kind of getting back to more on field and matchup wise. I mean, there are always games every year that are circled on our calendar, right? We want to beat Florida State every year. We were fortunate. We played them twice this past spring in the abbreviated season, and we split it, but we beat them in their barn. And that was the first win over Florida State since I was a sophomore. So 2013 season. So that was huge. We want to keep that rolling. We want to develop a little streak of our own. So, we want to be the best collegiate team at the MCLA level in the state. So, we always want to go undefeated in the state, which is teams, both at the MCLA D1 and D2 level. But whenever they're in our state, we always kind of ramp that up a notch. We want to travel well. That was something that when I played, we had poor results on the road. We've been much better about it in the recent past. In the MCLA, you got to be able to go on the road and win 3 games in a weekend. So that's something we focus on. But, all of that really just builds up to, we want to be serious contenders for conference and national championships while offering a really great experience that makes the work that guys put in worth it and then some.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. We'll probably try and have it up in the next few weeks, but we'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, other than that, good luck this upcoming fall and spring.
Thanks a ton. I want to talk about the MCLA. That fires me up. So
yeah,
keep up the good.
Froze at the end there, but all right. Have a nice night, Coach.
You too, fellas. Thanks.
See ya.